Hello everybody, my name is King Potassium, and after I bested Pokemon Brilliant Diamond in a hardcore Nuzlocke and then proceeded to lose all of my footage of that run, I wanted to try another Nuzlocke and actually make a video out of it this time instead of wasting my time again. This time I held a poll on Twitter asking which game I should Nuzlocke, and the people said I should give Pokemon X and Y a shot. Now, Pokemon X and Y are controversial games in the Nuzlocking community, specifically because, well, they're baby games made for little Jimmy's first foray into the world of Pokemon. The gym battles are laughably easy and they only have a max of 3 Pokemon, there's a lot of encounters, and this game has, apparently, one of the easiest champions in the franchise, despite the fact that technically I've actually never beaten her before this run. Now, that may all sound bad, I know, but these so-called experts never calculated for one simple fact. I'm just bad at Nuzlocking, especially hardcore Nuzlocking. The rules of the Hardcore Nuzlocke are simple. You can only catch the first Pokemon you encounter on each route. If a Pokemon faints, it is considered dead and is no longer usable. You must follow the level cap of the next gym leader or Elite Four member and champion, and no items are to be used in battle except for held items. However, since this game was reportedly, quote, so easy I could Nuzlocke it in my sleep, I added a few extra rules to my run. First, for every gym battle, I would have to match how many Pokemon the gym leader had, so at max I could only bring 3 Pokemon to the final gym. As well, the mysterious gimmick of Mega Evolution, which is a major selling point for these titles, would not be allowed in any battles except for battles where my opponents use Mega Evolution, of which there are, 3. There are 3 battles where I can use Mega Evolution, and one of them is scripted. Great. Well, with all the rules out of the way, I don't see why we should wait any longer. Let's get into the surprisingly difficult time I had Nuzlocking Pokemon X. I started the game as any new kid on the block would by being jumped right on my front doorstep by 2 of my neighbors, Korrina, the only real rival in this game, and Shauna, who definitely is attracted to the main character and exists to be the comedic relief of the group. After traveling down what has to be one of the worst Route 1s in Pokemon history, we meet the rest of these quote-unquote characters who we'll be calling our rivals. While I poke fun, I actually do come to love these idiots during my run, especially since they do basically nothing and just show up to be plot points. The 2 we meet are Tierno, who is the largest of the group, so of course Game Freak gave him an ice cream cone on his shirt, and Trevor, who is clearly Tierno's boyfriend, and no, you cannot convince me otherwise. We're offered one of the 3 starters of this region, being Chespin, Fennekin, and Froakie. Of course, I picked the only real option in Chespin, who I nicknamed Bunger. While objectively probably the worst starter of the trio, Chespin is not only my personal favorite, but also a fantastic Pokemon for a bunch of battles in the future that I'm personally worried about, and with an adamant nature, Bunger will be an amazing addition to the team. After steamrolling Shauna and telling my mom that the professor of the region really wants to meet her more intimately, I head on down the Route 2 where I can grab my first encounter of the run. I end up finding a Scatterbug, which, being the only person in the world who actually likes the Scatterbug line, that's not a bad thing. I nicknamed the funky little worm Peelbug. Inside the strangely familiar Santaloon Forest, I somehow end up finding a Panpour, the objective best Gen 5 elemental monkey, who I call Mount Sodi. On Route 3, I end up finding a lost bird amongst the aggressive preschoolers, so I scoop all of the fletchling up and book it to Santaloon City, where the first gym awaits. Now, interestingly, Viola can actually be a rather tough opponent, mainly because her level cap is so low and her ace is a fully evolved Vivillon. As well, I can only bring 2 Pokemon into this battle to match Viola's team. However, we have a perfect counter to this gym just as long as I don't miss an attack, which surprisingly is a lot harder than you'd expect. Viola leads with her Surskit while I lead with Bunger, who's going to have to do a majority of the work in this battle because despite being weak to Bug, Chespin learns Rollout, a rock-type move that gets stronger every turn it hits, but only has 90% accuracy, which in Pokemon terms means it has 50% accuracy. Luckily, after tanking a weak quick attack, Bunger can hit the first Rollout, which just barely doesn't do half. After being hit by an even weaker Bubble, Rollout connects again, knocking out the Surskit. But Surskit was never the problem. Her Vivillon is. However, after Vivillon goes to our useless Harden, Bunger connects with a third rollout, taking out Vivillon and winning us the battle. Now that we can finally continue on our journey, we head on over to Route 4, where we can find a Flabebe frolicking in the yellow flowers. I've definitely wanted to use a Flabebe before for a long time, but a naughty nature is not fantastic for Snequiri. However, don't knock this little guy out just yet. He's in the thumbnail for a reason. While the lovely flowers on Route 4 are quite beautiful, the bustling city of Lumiose, which is our next stop, is much more useful, as not only are there tons of things to do and a lot of shops to go shopping at, there's also the Professor's Lab, which is our next stop. we're supposed to just pop in and out, but I'm just too mesmerized by the sheer beauty of this man. Unfortunately, this hunk of a man challenges me to a Pokemon battle, but fortunately, thanks to Bunger, Lolive, and Mount Sodi, I have solid counters against this whole team, and after I curb stomp his team, he offers me one of the 3 Kanto starters. This choice, however, isn't very difficult, because the clear choice is Charmander. While not my favorite starter of the trio, the Charmander line is by far the most versatile and reliable, plus after picking up Charmello from the Professor, he gives us the Charizardite X, which we can't use at the moment, but can be a fantastic Pokemon later down the line. And yeah, a relaxed nature isn't great, but it's definitely usable. While we try to head off to the next gym, we end up not being able to head forwards thanks to a Snorlax sleeping right in the only narrow part of the road. So we need to head off to Route 7 and Par from Palace and go help some rich dude find his dog and something. Listen, this took like an hour in the game to actually do. It takes so long. It's so boring. I literally went off script because it's so boring even reading it. It's pointless. The only thing you need to know is I catch an Esper on Route 7, and the encounter is, I nickname Instabug. The name is Instabug. That's all that matters. After picking up Instabug, we're tasked with actually battling the living roadblock. During this battle, though, I actually ended up catching this massive lug. I nicknamed him Mama Melon, and with a docile nature, this chunky bear guy thing is a surprising yet powerful addition to the team. After fighting the lovely couple, a trip to Route 8 ends up giving us the encounter of a Drifloon who I nicknamed Millie Mochi, who will be an invaluable member to the team for the 3rd gym if, of course, I can get him that far. Then we're tasked with stopping the least fashionable terrorists who ever lived as they kidnapped a scientist. Reminds me of a movie I once saw. Anyways, this game will luckily forget about the vile Team Flare, or Team Flare, as the kidnapped scientist would say, but these schmucks are surprisingly a consistent threat for my team somehow, despite how annoying and boring dealing with them usually is. After saving the scientist, we can head over to Silage City, where we can finally take on the next gym. Before that, I can nab a Rock Smash Dwebble as my encounter into the town, who I call Crapple. Gym Leader Grant leads with his Amora, while I lead with Mount Sodi. I lead with a Scald that misses out doing half, while the Amora paralyzes Mount Sodi with a Thunder Wave. So, on the next turn, Amora is faster and hits a strong takedown, while Mount Sodi uses Scald again, which ends up taking out the Amora, luckily. So next comes in the Tyrant, so I swap into Bunger, who has evolved into the uncomfortable to look at Quilladin. A Stomp does very little damage, and on the next turn I set up a Leech Seed, while a Rock Tomb does minimal damage to Bunger, but does get the speed drop. On the next turn, Tyrant hits a weak bite, while Bunger's Rock Smash doesn't do much, and doesn't get the defense drop, so you're just doing great, honey. The Tyrant hits another weak bite, but it makes Bunger eat his Hell Berry before another Rock Smash ends up critting and taking out the Tyrant, winning us the battle. I take that back, Bunger. You are surprisingly useful into this battle. Route 10 gives us a Snubble, who I nicknamed White Strabby, who doesn't really get much use, but you were there, so I feel like giving him a shout out. I don't know. I try not to include all the encounters in this run. There are so many encounters in this run. I don't know, I just like Snubble. In Geosenge Town, we go up against Korrina, the gym leader, except not in a gym battle, and she has 2 Lucarios. I mean, Lucario is a very good Pokemon, and my team is not built to fight them, but I have a Ghost type in Millie Mochi. And for some reason, her entire team is unable to hit any ghost types at all. So we just blow them all away before being told that battle wasn't good enough. We need to fight Korrina again, this time in Chandler City, where she won't use a single Lucario. What is going on? But before we can take her on as the gym leader, we need to face our rival, Serena, for plot reasons. And I was going into this battle with what I thought was a genius plan. And after this battle, I learned an important lesson that I believe everyone who has ever done a Nuzlocke can attest to. If you have a plan, things will go wrong. Serena leads Meowstic and I lead Chocolate to Krokorok. Wait, oh, right. I forgot to introduce him earlier. He was my encounter on Route 9. Meowstic leads with a Fake Out that flinches, of course, and on the next turn a Disarming Voice from Meowstic does way too much damage, and a Crunch doesn't kill like I thought it would. I don't actually do calculations for my Nuzlocks, and of course that throws off my plan for this battle. So I decided to swap into Snorlax to try and spare Chocolante's life, and a Disarming Voice does pitiful damage against Mama Melon. A Psybeam from Meowstic doesn't do much damage, but of course it gets the confusion, and of course Mama Melon hits himself. It's spiraling. I knew it was going to happen. I decided to risk the confusion and go for another hit. Another Psybeam still doesn't do enough to take Mama Melon to the yellow, and Mama Melon snaps out of confusion and also crushes the Meowstic with a Body Slam. So next comes in Absol, so I swap in the White Strabby, even though she doesn't have any fairy moves, but she does have the ability Intimidate, which drops the Absol's attack. but then the Absol gets a crit with Slash, which does about half. I decided to go for a Charm, as Absol confoundingly goes for a Bite for some reason. A quick attack from the Absol still doesn't do a lot of damage, and then a Headbutt from White Scrabby does just over half. Another random Bite doesn't hurt in the slightest, but of course it flinches. To say I was mildly upset at this point would be an understatement, as my plan has gone completely off the rails. On the next turn, another Bite doesn't get the kill and doesn't get the flinch, so White Scrabby hits the Headbutt and takes out this master nuisance. Believe me, this is somehow the least annoying this thing will be in the future. So it comes out, Serena's Ace breaks in, and here, right here, is where I make one of the dumbest decisions in any of my playthroughs of any Pokemon game ever. You see, originally I was going to use Chocolant to counter breaks in, but now since she was so low, I need someone else to do the job. So I swap into Millie Mochi, who is evolved into Driftblim, and this was stupid. Because I only swapped into Millie Mochi because I figured Braixen was a Psychic type and Ghost beats Psychic. Braixen is not a Psychic type. It says on the sheet that I used that it's not a Psychic type. I just assumed that because it knew a Psychic type move, it was a Psychic type now. And all I can do is watch in terror as Millie Mochi is trapped into the battle before I realize that Braixen's not a Psychic type and gets taken out. That sucks. Like, horribly sucks, because it was 100% my inability to pay attention. I underestimated my opponent so badly in this battle, and just assumed that I knew something, and it came back to bite me. And while I can just swap into Mama Melwin and take out the Braixen, there's this pain in knowing that the first death of the run came so early, especially in a game that everyone says is way too easy. Of course, though, the third gym doesn't do anything to disprove that, because other than a useless fake-out from the lead Mienfoo, Instabug, who is evolved into Meowstic, is able to Oko sweep the entirety of Korrina's team. Maybe you should have brought your Lucario this time, Korrina, Speaking of Lucario, here's the infamous moment in these games where they just give you Lucario with the ability to Mega Evolve. Of course, I decided to keep this encounter because it's kind of a really good Pokemon, who I nicknamed Loaded Spuddy. Lucario is a fantastic Pokemon having two great typings, Steel and Fighting, which my team is sorely missing. Plus, a hasty nature, while dangerous, is also really good and should not be passed up on. On Route 12, I have a tough decision to make. While I can grab an encounter in the grass or on the surf, I can also grab a Lapras from this breeder here. I ultimately decided to take the Lapras and nickname it Paletos. I specifically chose Lapras since my best encounter elsewhere are a Tentacool or an Execute, both of which aren't very good. Meanwhile, Lapras has a fantastic typing in water/ice, and surprisingly, ice types aren't dog water, or should I say plesiosaur water in this gen, especially into the Elite Four. Plus, with a neutral docile nature, Paletos will be a valuable member of the team, and believe me, I'm going to screw up saying this name so many times. Once we're done doing the best thing in any Pokemon game, and of course I'm talking about Skidoo wrangling, and we're able to grab a shiny stone nearby, and afterwards doing both of those very fun things, I ride on over to Core Main City, which is the first city in this game where I'm just going to say, it's pretty. I can't get over it. And it's such a shame that the gym leader is Ramos. Romos? I don't know how to pronounce it, but I really don't care. What I do know is that Serena challenges us to another battle, and to say that this one went as well as the last one. You know, the one that killed my first Pokemon? Serena sends out Meowstic, and I send out Chocolant again, clearly not learning anything from last time. A fake out flinches and crits, and on the next turn, a Disarming Voice does way too much damage for my liking, again, and a super effective Boosted Assurance does half. I swap out into the Crapple the Crustle, who tanks a Disarming Voice comfortably. On the next turn, another Disarming Voice doesn't do nearly any damage, and a Bug Bite takes out the always irritating Meowstic. So in comes the Braixen, who I know isn't a Psychic type this time. I decide to risk a dangerous Fire type move and go for a Rock Slide, but the Braixen just goes for Psybeam, which does baby damage. The Rock Slide almost kills, of course, so on the next turn the Braixen goes for a Fire Spin, which does an uncomfortably large amount of damage, but a Rock Slide is enough to take out the Furry Bait, which then brings in the Unholy Absol. I immediately swap out a Grapple and into Mama Melon, being my bulkiest Pokemon right now, but of course to switch in, the Absol gets a critical bite, which almost does half. Wonderful. On the next turn, Absol hits a very weak quick attack, and Mama Melon hits a Yawn, which will put the Absol to sleep on the next turn. But, before it goes to sleep, the Absol hits another critical hit bite, which takes out Mama Melon. Which just kind of feels like a massive middle finger, honestly. Well, since the Absol is asleep, I can safely swap into Paletos, and after I set up the rain, the Absol hits a pathetic Slash, and Paletos can hit an Overkill Surf to take out the Lapras. Hey Serena, maybe get a crit when it matters next time, you one-dimensional joke whose most defining character trait is your lack of one. Well, now that I'm all riled up, I decided to take on Ramos, but this battle was so pathetically easy. The most interesting part of it was that I used Pallet Toss to sweep his first 2 Pokemon. So I effectively beat over half of Ramos' team with a water type, making me the true reincarnation of Ash Ketchum. And believe me, I'm just about as good as using Pokemon as he is. Apparently Team Flare is doing evil things again, so I rush up to stop their evil plans of stealing energy. Oh no! However, on my way there, I pick up a Gibble who just decided to jump me randomly. I nickname him Talkroach, and Garchomp itself is awesome, but basically giving me a free pseudo-legendary is pretty rad, especially again since I get Mega Garchomp right before the Elite Four, which would be sweet to have, especially with the adamant nature. There's really nothing of major interest that happens during the raid on the power plant, except both Bunger and Charmello evolve in their final forms, being Chestnut and Charizard respectively, during the exact same battle. Other than that though, I'm free to move on back into Lumio City to take on the 5th gym leader, Clement, who specializes in electric types. While taking on the gym challengers, Talkroach actually ends up evolving into Gabite, but with that evolution out of the way, we're ready to take on Clement, who surprisingly wasn't a single sweep like the last 2 gyms. Clement leads with his Emolga and I send out Talkroach. The battle begins with Talkroach being hit by a strong Aerial Ace that does about a 4th while Talkroach sets up the Sandstorm. Thanks to Talkroach's ability, Sandveil, which increases evasiveness in a Sandstorm, I'm hoping I can avoid some strong hits. Of course, since Aerial Ace can't miss, the Emolga hits another one, which takes Talkroach down to the range where she eats her held Citrus Berry, but then a Rock Tomb does just over half and lowers the Emolga's speed, so in the next turn Talkroach outspeeds and takes us down the Flying Rat. So next comes in Magneton, who's by far Clement's scariest teammate. I go for a 4-time super effective Sand Tomb, but the 95% accuracy bites me as I miss. But then the Magneton misses a Mirror Shot, so it's fine. On the next turn, Sand Tomb somehow misses again, but the Magneton also misses another Mirror Shot. Okay. The Sandstorm ends, so in the next turn I set up another one, while the Magneton misses another Mirror Shot. And then, I literally cannot believe this happens. I miss another Sand Tomb, and Magneton misses again! Luckily on the next turn, Talkroach finally figures out how to not miss a 95% accurate move, and hits a Sand Tomb that takes the Magneton down to Deep Yellow, while the Magneton finally hits its apparently 2% accurate Mirror Shot, which takes Talkroach down to just 10 HP. After Magneton is taken into the red by a Sand Tomb, I know Clement's gonna heal, but considering Talkroach's batting average with Sand Tomb, I decided safer to just swap it out into Loaded Spuddy. I decided to risk a Sword Stance, boosting my attack by 2 stages, while the Magneton sets up an Electric Terrain, which, I'll be completely honest, I have no idea what that does. Nevertheless, on the next turn after the Sandstorm subsides, a boosted Bone Rush hits twice, knocking out the shockingly inaccurate robot. So in comes Clement's ace, Heliolisk. But I wasn't kidding when I said that Magneton was his toughest teammate, because a single power-up punch that is enough to one-shot the Lizard, winning us what has easily been the most difficult gym battle so far. Afterwards, I have to head over to Route 14, where Serena challenges us to another battle, but this time around she wasn't that bad. Hey, maybe she's going to be a pushover the rest of the run. I doubt it. After hearing what might possibly be the worst description of Miitopia I've ever heard, we make it to our destination, Lavere City, where our next gym battle takes place. Before I take on the gym, I end up talking to apparently attractive to some people Goth Girl, and by some people I mean me, who gives us a Gengar, which is completely useless for now, but definitely will be useful later on. But since we're done simping, we can take on the 6th gym leader, Valerie. But since I found out you could buy Poison Jab right before this gym, this one ended up being a pushover. After doing something with Team Flare, look, I'll be completely honest, I love X and Y. These are like some of my favorite Pokemon games. Easily. I love this generation. I do not care about Team Flare at all. Like, I never really like the evil stuff unless it's interesting, like Team Plasma or Team Star, Galactic also, and that kind of stuff. But Team Flare is just so boring and bland, and like anytime I face them, I do not care unless I have a Scrafty, because for some reason Scrafty is the most dangerous thing I've ever gone up against when I'm facing Team Flare. Which is weird, but nevertheless. Anyways, we head on to Route 15, where I end up finding a Skorupi. Noodler isn't great with a modest nature, but his typing could be useful. After that, we visit the Lost Hotel, where I end up finding a Litwick, who I nicknamed Sheepoof. A hasty nature is fine, but I'm sure down the line having a ghost type will be useful. Once we're done with that, we end up with my personal favorite town in the entire game, Dendemille Town, which is just, it's just so beautiful. I love these games. I mean, other than that, we have to go deal with Team Flare again. I'm so happy. Well, luckily, we do get a nice consolation gift in the form of a Haunter. I nickname him Black Raspy, and unlike Noodler, a modest nature is incredible here. Plus, once he evolves, the Gengarite will be perfect for all of 2 battles that we can Mega Evolve in. Once that's over and done with, we can make the treacherous journey to Anastar City, where the next gym waits for us. However, Serena challenges us to another battle, but she was a pushover last time. She won't be difficult this time, right? Serena leads with her awful Meowstic, where I lead Black Raspberry. A Shadow Ball from Meowstic does way too much damage, but a Shadow Ball from Black Raspberry just takes the Meowstic out. So next comes in Delphox, which I definitely was not expecting. So I'm basically forced to swap, choosing Palitos as my swap, who tanks the Flamethrower that the Delphox went for some reason. It's like she knew I was going to swap out. A critical Psychic does massive damage, but a Surf barely misses out on putting Delphox in the healing range, so again I need to swap. I decide on Charmello in an act of desperation, who gets hit for around half by a Psychic. Unfortunately, I don't have a safe swap, so I need to risk Charmello to take this thing out. If it outspeeds, it's likely to take Charmello out. And it outspeeds, but it goes for Flamethrower, which just barely misses the kill as Charmello takes the Delphox out. Luckily, the rest of Serena's team is easy to deal with, but I certainly wasn't expecting her to put up that much of a fight. I mean, this fight mainly just goes to show how you can't underestimate your opponents in a Nuzlocke. If it weren't for the AI going for just the dumbest moves possible, I could have lost Charmello and maybe even the run. However, one opponent you can always underestimate is a Psychic-type gym, as both Black Raspberry and Noodler, who have evolved into their final forms, can easily sweep this gym within the leader, who I can't remember the name of. After this battle, Lysandre announces to the world that he's planning on causing the apocalypse and— wait. I just realized I never brought Lysandre up this entire time. Wow, that's kind of sad. I'll introduce you guys during the first battle. See, viewer, this is Lysandre. Lysandre, this is the wonderful viewer. Oh, what's that? You're going to eradicate all life on the planet because you're sad that things aren't as pretty as you'd like them to be? Wow, you remind me of this certain artist. Anyways, after kicking Lysandre's butt in what is easily the easiest of the 3 times you have to face him in a row for some reason, we find out he's caged up my tall friend Jean because he's 300 years old and an ancient king or something. Look, these games lost me whenever I found out Lysandre was supposed to be a twist villain. Once we've eaten this random scientist dude with by far the most evil sounding name in a Pokemon game ever, I mean, like, I'm not even going to try and pronounce it, that's just too evil, I feel like my furniture is going to start floating. We find out that there's this random town where a massive nuclear weapon is lying in wait to be used by Lysandre. We head there and have to battle him again, but what I should have been worried about were these random Team Flare admins, as during a battle against 2 of them, I end up facing off against a Houndoom and a Scrafty, with loaded Spuddy and a worthless Meowstic thanks to Serena. I know these Scrafties have been a major problem for me this entire run, so I focused in on taking that thing out, but in my haste, I completely forgot about the Houndoom, who charges up a Flamethrower right into loaded Spuddy, which crits, torching loaded Spuddy where he stands. This was the first death of the run that genuinely hurt. Loaded Spuddy was a valuable teammate who carried us through some of the toughest battles of the run. This is a loss that genuinely hurts, and it hurts even more knowing that his death came from me trying to protect him. With a new Lucario-shaped hole in the team, I need new teammates, so I bring Snowbelle out of the box. Yeah, remember her? The encounter I got all the way back on Route 4? Well, I bring her out into the team and train her up all the way to being a Florges. While she may not get a lot of use at the moment, the Fairy type is a very valuable one to have, especially attached to a monster tank that Snowbelle is. But after we return to the underground bunker, we find out that the legendary Pokemon Xerneas is being used to fuel Lysandre's nuclear armada. We rescue the legendary, but Lysandre arrives, sporting a goofy outfit and a terrifying team capped off by a Mega Gyarados. No matter which way I look at it, this battle is going to be one of the hardest ones in the run, even if I can finally use Mega Evolution. Lysandre leads with a Mienshao, where I lead Palitos, but this is only the beta high jump kick while I swap into Black Raspberry. The miss causes Mienshao to lose half of its HP, and on the next turn I can finally use my Mega Ring to Mega Evolve Black Raspberry into Mega Gengar. Mega Gengar immediately outspeeds the Mienshao and takes it out with a Dazzling Gleam. Next up for Lysandre is his Pyroar, who is the only non-Mega member of his team that Black Raspberry can't one-shot, so I risk a crit as I go for Hidden Power, which for Black Raspberry is the Ground type, which does over half. A Fire Blast from Pyroar does massive damage though, but another Hidden Power can take out the Lion. So next is the Honchkrow, but Black Raspberry outspeeds and one-shots it with a Thunderbolt. So next comes in the Gyarados, but I make a horrifying discovery. When I was looking at the levels and stats for Lysandre's team, the whole time I had been looking at his fight right before this one. So now my team was under-leveled against his Gyarados. This Gyarados Mega Evolves, but I've already known what was coming. Ever since I lost Loaded Spuddy, I've known that Team Flare weren't just going to take one of my teammates. This Mega Gyarados does too much damage into my team, and my only reliable counter was Black Raspberry with Levitate to avoid the Earthquake. But when Mega Gyarados fully transforms thanks to the nuclear energy in the room, it gains the ability Mold Breaker, which nullifies all abilities. So ever since I swapped into Black Raspberry, I've known what's coming. Black Raspberry outspeeds the Mega Gyarados and hits a Thunderbolt that does exactly half of the Mega Gyarados' HP, as right afterwards the Mega Gyarados hits a super powerful Earthquake that overkills Black Raspberry. killing him with no remorse, and ripping away another beloved teammate. I swap into Bunger, who hasn't had much action recently, but the pent-up rage has finally reached its peak. And after using a spiky shield for extra chip damage, Bunger tanks the outrage and uses C-Bomb, which takes down the behemoth, winning us the battle. Lysandre is too angry to be reasoned with and tries to detonate all of his bombs at once to take us all out, but luckily we're able to escape in time, resulting in him being the only casualty. After burying the ashy remains of both Loaded Spuddy and Black Raspberry, I decided to bring Cheepoof the Litwick onto the team. The last time I used a Chandelure, they ended up being a massive disappointment, so I'm hoping this time around things could be different. Speaking of, along the way we can find a Dusk Stone in Terminus Cave, allowing us to evolve Cheepoof all the way up into Chandelure. We also run into the hunky professor again, who apologizes that I had to step in and enact the Geneva laws where Kalos could not. Before we can continue onwards to the next gym, we're challenged into 3 battles in a row against the 3 lesser rivals: Unreciprocated Love Interest, Dancing Dude, and Dancing Dude's Gay Lover. However, all of them were pushovers thanks to Talkroach, who evolved into Garchomp a while ago. Wolfric is the final gym leader, but I'm not even going to pretend like he was difficult. I clicked Flamethrower on Charmello and the battle ended. But now that we have all 8 gym badges, we can head over to what has to be my favorite victory road in the entire franchise. I'm sorry, it just looks so good. I can't help it. It's the perfect aesthetic. All that's left to do is to go scouting across the region for a few extra items and TMs. And in what feels like no time at all, I have my final team for the Elite Four and Champion prepared and raring to go. First up is Bunger, the starter who actually made it to the end this time. Bunger is a physical monster whose moveset is built to represent that. All I want Bunger to do is to stand strong and tank basically everything that gets thrown his way. As my trusty starter, I know I can rely on him when it counts. Next up is Charmello the Charizard, who has been extremely reliable this entire run. Decked out with the Charizard at X, he's my choice for Mega during the champion battle. Not even calling into question his excellent stat distribution and powerful moveset, Charmello is here to take out anything that gets in his way. Third up on the team is another reliable gift Pokemon, Politoss the Lapras. Surprisingly, Politoss has a very versatile moveset, and with both the Never Melt Ice and the Water Absorb ability, Politoss is a fantastic encounter to pretty much anything that can't hit her super effectively. By far the MVP of the run so far, Talkroach has been slaying everything after the loss of Loaded Spuddy. A reliable partner so long as the opponent doesn't have an Ice-type move. With a nasty move pool and over 200 in attack, Talkroach is a heavy hitter into the entire game, so I'm sure he'll be more than useful in the Elite Four and Champion. Fifth is the most recent member of the team, Cheepoof the Chandelure. While yes, this is a type overlap, I'm okay with that, as Cheepoof is really here for 2 big reasons. 1, the Flash Fire ability, which makes some Elite Four members a joke, and 2, the Ghost typing, which will be more than useful into this game's ring of toughest battles. Last but certainly not least is Snaquiri the Florges. Despite not being on the team for long or having much time to shine, Snaquiri is a special wall that I've specifically designed to sit on the battlefield and hit Moonblast while constantly healing up. Alright, with that out of the way, all that's left to do is to take on the final challenge of the run, the Kalos Elite Four and Champion. I start this gauntlet with who I presume to be the easiest battle of the Elite Four, which in this case is Malva, who is the Fire-type specialist. She leads with her Pyroar and I lead with Talkroach. A soft sand boosted Earthquake is enough to eliminate the Pyroar in a single shot, so next in is Malva's ace, Talonflame, who I decided to play it safe and swap into Palitoss on, while the Talonflame just hits a strong Brave Bird that does almost half. While the Talonflame outspeeds and hits another Brave Bird on the next turn, taking Palitoss down to 61 HP, a single surf is enough to wash the bird away. So out comes Torkoal, but since Palitoss is so low, I decided to swap back into Talkroach on the Stonehenge that does so little damage it might as well have missed. An Earthquake on the next turn is enough to send the turtle packing, leaving only Malva's own Chandelure, but another Earthquake is enough to take it out, winning us the first Elite Four battle, which was, as I predicted, incredibly easy. Next I decided to go up against Wickstrom, my personal favorite in this game's Elite Four, and my vote for Most Underrated Elite Four Member award. Wickstrom leads with an unfitting Klefki while I lead Talkroach again. While the Klefki is able to outspeed and set up spikes, Talkroach is able to ground the floating baby, or average Twitter user, distraction with a single Earthquake. So next up is Probopass, which survives a 4 times effective Earthquake thanks to Sturdy and hits a critical Flash Cannon that doesn't do too much damage. On the next turn, Wickstrom heals while another Earthquake just takes Probopass down to Sturdy again. After doing the song and dance for another turn, finally Wickstrom can't heal anymore and a Brick Break takes the Probopass out. This means that Wickstrom sends in his ace, Aegislash. This thing is a powerhouse, and on the first turn it goes for King Shield, protecting it from damage. On the next turn, an Earthquake from Talkroach just barely doesn't take it out, and it changes forms to its sword form and hits an incredibly too powerful Iron Head. Luckily, on the next turn, Talkroach still outspeeds and takes out the Aegislash. Wickstrom sends in his final Pokemon Scizor, but a swap into Charmello just guarantees that this battle is won. Third up is Drasna, the Dragon Master, who leads the battle with her Dragalge, who I remember hating as a child. I lost so many Elite Four attempts as a kid to this single Dragalge to the point in which I rage quit and never actually beat this game. This time though, I have Talkroach, who leads the battle with a powerful Earthquake that sends the Dragalge into an early grave. Next up on Drasna's team is her Altaria, so I swap into Snaquiri as the Cloud sets up a worthless Cotton Guard. A single Moonblast isn't enough for the KO, and the Altaria retaliates by missing a Sing. Well, okay. On the next turn, Drasna uses a full restore, while Snequiri hits another Moonblast that just barely misses the kill. So after Drasna heals again, another Moonblast just misses the kill again. But on the next turn, the fourth Moonblast is enough to put the LT area down. In comes Drasna's ace, Noivern, who hits a critical air slash while Snequiri sets up a wish. Another air slash flinches Snequiri, but the wish heals her up to full HP. On the next turn, Noivern goes for a Super Fang, which always does half the opponent's HP, and a Moonblast just barely misses the KO. So on the next turn, Noivern goes for an air slash while Snequiri sets up a wish. Of course, during the next turn, the air slash flinches again, but Snequiri is healed up to almost full HP thanks to the wish and the held leftovers. Another air slash flinches again, then another air slash doesn't, allowing Snequiri to finally hit another Moonblast, taking out the Noivern. Drasna's final Pokemon, Druddigan, comes out, but since this thing has Retaliate, I swap in the Cheepoof, who can't be hit by the uber powerful move. Cheepoof's Shadow Ball does over half and drops the Duplo Dragon's special defense, but a hard Dragon Tail takes Cheepoof low and also forces Cheepoof out of the battle, dragging in Snequiri. Alrighty, I guess you want this to end sooner than I do. So of course, the Moonblast ends this battle, leaving us with only one Elite Four member left. Seabold's team of water types is definitely not fun to go up against, especially since he has counters to nearly all of my team. However, I do have a plan. Let's just hope it goes right, for once. Seabold leads with his Lobster, while I finally decide that Bunger should join in on the fun. Surprisingly, Bunger is able to outspeed and one-shot the Clawitzer with a single Seed-Bomb. Seabold retaliates by sending in his Starmie, so I swap into Snequiri, who takes a powerful Psychic. While the Starmie outspeeds and sets up a Light Screen, Snequiri hits a soft Magical Leaf. However, the Starmie can't touch Snequiri very well, so I decide to stay in and have a chip battle. And after almost being taken out by a critical Psychic, Snequiri retaliates with his critical hit of her own, taking out the Starmie. After which heals up Snequiri, Seabold sends in Gyarados, but this one's not nearly as intimidating as Lysandre's radioactive one, so I swap into Palitos, who's unaffected by the incoming Waterfall. On the next turn, the Palitos tanks into Earthquake in response with a super effective Thunderbolt that just barely misses the knockout. After some more healing shenanigans though, Gyarados can't do enough damage, so Palitos can take it out with a final Thunderbolt. This means that Seabold only has one Pokemon left, his Ace Barbaracle. However, this thing only has physical moves and is 4 times weak to grass, so I can safely swap into Bunger again, and a single Seed-Bomb is enough to win us the final Elite Four battle, meaning we can take on Champion Diantha. Diantha leads with her Hawlucha while I lead Snequiri. The Hawlucha foolishly decides to go for a Swords Dance, so a single Moonblast can take out the Luchador. So next up is one of Diantha's more terrifying Pokemon, her Tyrantrum. I decide to stay in and risk Snequiri to a super powerful Head Smash that would instantly take her out, but instead Snequiri just decides to one-shot the dinosaur with a single Moonblast. Third up is Diantha's other dinosaur, her Aurorus, so I go for Magical Leaf, which doesn't do too much damage, while the Aurorus sets up a Reflect. However, this gives me an idea, so I swap out a Snequiri and into Bunger, but strangely Diantha swaps out of her Aurorus and sends in her Goodra. However, my plan still stands, so on the next turn I go for Brick Break, which does extra damage because of the Reflect that is now shattered. However, before I can do that, the Goodra hits a powerful Fire Blast that burns, which clicks something in my mind. Something bad. On the next turn, I don't swap out, but I let Goodra take out Bunger with a super effective Fire Blast. While this loss is a rough one, it is a valiant sacrifice so I could safely bring in Cockroach, who can outspeed and slaughter the Goodra with a Dragon Claw. Then the Aurorus comes back, but a single Earthquake makes this dinosaur extinct again. This means that Gourgeist comes in second to last, but I figure this thing is going for Trick or Treat, so I can swap into my ace in the hole, Charmello. While the Trick or Treat means I'm now weak to Ghost types, this doesn't even matter as now Charmello can Mega Evolve into Mega Charizard X, who scorches the Gourgeist with a single Flamethrower. So in comes the final Pokemon of the run, Diantha's Gardevoir, who Mega Evolves into Mega Gardevoir, but at this point, it doesn't even matter, as Charmello can hit a super effective, Tough Claws boosted Mega Shadow Claw, shredding the opposing Mega where it stands, not only winning us the battle, but the whole run. This run was fun. Sure, it got frustrating at points, but I genuinely enjoyed doing this run the whole way through. Well, granted, the game wasn't very difficult. It certainly made up for that by just having so much variety. So many encounters, so many moves. I can't express how much fun it was to use a wide variety of Pokemon. I genuinely think this might have been my favorite Nuzlocke I've done so far. And I would love to come back to this game again. I am looking to try and Nuzlocke almost every single mainline Pokemon game that I personally think would be fun. And I'm hoping you guys are enjoying this as much as I am, because genuinely, I've been having a blast Nuzlocking these games, and I hope you guys are having just as much fun watching me. With that though, all good things must come to a close, and while this run may be over, I'm certainly excited to maybe try Nuzlocking these games again. Until then, however, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I hope you all enjoyed.